Joining me live now from eastern Ukraine is journalist Mary McAuliffe. Mary, thanks so much for joining me. So Russia says it captured Bakhmut. Ukraine says that's not true. So how do you and the other people in Ukraine actually know what's true and what's not?
The third time that Wagner chief Evgeny Prigozhin has said that they have captured Bakhmut. So anytime they make this announcement, it is, of course, always met with skepticism here on the ground. Second of all, we've also been meeting with a number of troops. We know there are still troops in Bakhmut. We know the situation is quite difficult. This is also what we heard from the deputy defense minister yesterday. The situation in Bakhmut is critical, but that they do hold a small corridor in the southwest of the city, but that they remain there in position and they will continue to defend against the Russian forces who are there. We do know that the Ukrainians have put a lot of effort into defending Bakhmut, but we also know that the strategic value of the area is largely dependent on keeping Russian forces in the area. This is a strategy that Ukraine has been reliant on for a long time now as this battle has waged on. So we know the Ukrainian forces are not eager to give up this area, whether or not they remain surrounded in the area by Russian forces. As for the moment, we know they are still there. They are still defending this territory.
So Mary, 1 year into this battle, why is it so important? What's so strategic about Bakhmut?
Really, it doesn't have that much strategic importance. I hate to say that. There are some who disagree with me, particularly those who used to live in Bakhmut, but really there is no importance to the area itself. It has mostly been used as a war or the battle of attrition in this area. So to try and keep Russian forces, rather than from spreading out into attacking different parts of eastern Ukraine, which might make it more difficult for the Ukrainian forces to defend against, by maintaining this battle and keeping the pressure on Bakhmut, they're able to concentrate the Russian forces in this area. We know this has proved effective up until this point, and that Russian forces have been sending wave after wave of troops, not the best troops, not the kind of troops that first invaded a year ago. Many of them from these Wagner mercenary forces, also some they've been drawing from prisons to send people to the front lines in Bakhmut. So they really are picking at the bottom of the barrel as come to Bakhmut. But for Ukraine, it has allowed them time to regroup, to prepare for this counteroffensive, which we do believe is coming, and meanwhile keep the area and the fight mostly contained in this one area. That's not to say there aren't other fighting areas going on here in eastern Ukraine. There are, of course, different areas, but the majority of the fighting is going on in Bakhmut. And we know until now, Ukraine has very much preferred this dynamic.
So President Zelensky, Ukrainian President Zelensky, was at the G7. He was asking for help from the world community. The U.S. and now the Netherlands say they're going to help with some fighter jets and some artillery. The U.S. was hoping not to get involved because they didn't want to upset Russia. So doing this now will help move the needle at all?
Of course, F-16 jets, I mean, they are an incredibly powerful aviation tool, and they will certainly help. Ukrainian Air Force does not really have a robust Air Force. The technology is severely lacking. Many of the planes are Soviet-era technology. We've heard from the colonel of the Air Force who said recently the most up-to-date plane they have was from 1991. So certainly having F-16 jets, having this U.S. technology that's used by many NATO countries will be a big advantage to the Ukrainian forces in the area. They say also its radar capability will allow them to carry out missions, to fly at a lower rate that allow them to carry out missions and be undetected by Russian forces. But we do also know that Russians have a very, very advanced air defense system. They have very many S-300, S-400 air defense missiles. They have enough of these missiles that they use them really to target civilian areas indiscriminately. If they have enough missiles to use this in this way, they certainly have enough to shoot at the planes. This is why you also don't see many planes in the Donbass where I am now. I haven't seen a plane the entire month I've been here. We've seen one helicopter that's flying. But the Russian air defenses, they can really reach a really far range here in the Donbass and can cover a lot of territory. So it's certainly not going to harm Ukrainian armed forces. Whether or not it will really make a difference in the battle, we know can certainly help in a counteroffensive to provide the first strike. But we also know there's much more equipment that forces here on the ground are asking for and needing for. Today, we saw also a body armor that was taken off a soldier who's going into a trench tomorrow that was immediately pierced by a bullet that shot at 60 meters range. These are basically cardboard body plates. These are ones that are being issued, that are being given to some of the forces here fighting. They're much more pertinent needs, medical needs, humanitarian equipment, supplies, things like this that would be much less expensive and can also make a huge difference in bringing down the casualty rate. And these we are not really seeing from the U.S.
Great. Mary McAuliffe joining me live from Ukraine. Thank you so much for joining me.